Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I must thank you for the warmth of your reception. Lovers of the muse of poesy and the drama, I welcome you here tonight to this temple of Thespis. Oh, I wish you could have witnessed the scenes in the street outside, scenes of such wild abandon and enthusiasm as has rarely been seen since the last visit of Her Most Gracious Majesty the Queen. I am bound to say that I expect no less enthusiastic scenes in the street outside when I leave after this recital. There are one or two distinguished citizens of this great city who are unable to be with us tonight. The Lord Provost of the city is unable to be here because he's engaged with a Protestant meeting of ratepayers inquiring into the fouling of the civic streets by the horse-drawn trams. The moderator of the General Assembly of the Free Church of Scotland says, "Dear Mr. McGonagall..." No. Ladies and gentlemen and lovers of the drama, I was born in this year of grace 1830 of natural parents in the ancient and beautiful city of Edinburgh, Scotland's bonny garden. And it is to that shrine of my nativity that I would like first of all to pay tribute tonight in these immortal lines. I have called this poem of mine in tribute to the fair city of Edinburgh, Scotland's bonny garden so green. I have called it Edinburgh. Beautiful city of Edinburgh, where the tourist can drown his sorrow by viewing your monuments and statues fine during the lovely summer time. I'm sure it will his spirits cheer as Sir Walter Scott's monument he draws near that stands in East Princes Street, amongst flowery gardens fine and neat. And Edinburgh Castle is magnificent to be seen, with its beautiful walks and its trees so green, which seem like a fairy dell. And nearby its rocky basement is St. Margaret's Well, where the tourist can drink at when he feels dry, and view the castle from beneath so very high, which seems almost towering to the sky. Then, as for Salisbury Crags, they are most beautiful to be seen, especially in the month of June when the grass is green. There numerous molehills can be seen, and the busy little creatures howking away, searching for worms amongst the clay. Then, as for Arthur's Seat, I'm sure it's a treat, most worthy to be seen, with its rugged rocks and pastures green, and the sheep browsing on its sides, to and fro with slow-paced strides, and the little lambkins at play during the livelong summer day. Beautiful city of Edinburgh. The truth to express, your beauties are matchless, I must confess, and which no one dare gainsay, but that you are the grandest city in Scotland at the present day. My parents were Irish. They were weavers, handloom weavers. And after I was born in the city of Edinburgh, we remained there for some 2-3 years before there was a recession in the cotton trade, and we moved through to the west, to that beautiful town of Paisley, where we remained for some further 3 years. The trade there falling rather short, we came to that most delectable and beautiful jewel of the West, the city of Glasgow. In the city of Glasgow, I remained for some 3 or 4 years, and it was here that I first went to an institution of education. I was there for some 18 months before there was a crash in the cotton trade in Glasgow, and my parents of blessed memory, who are now lying next to each other in the western necropolis in Dundee, took me away from that school. So all the schooling that I had was before the age of 7 years and was 18 months at the school in Glasgow. I have called this poem in tribute to the fair and flourishing city of Glasgow. Glasgow. Beautiful city of Glasgow, with your streets so neat and clean, your stately mansions and beautiful green, likewise your beautiful bridges across the River Clyde, and on your bonny banks I would like to reside. This is the chorus. Then away to the west, to the beautiful west, to the fair city of Glasgow that I like the best, where the River Clyde rolls on to the sea, and the lark and the blackbird whistle with glee. 'Tis beautiful to see the ships passing to and fro, laden with goods for the high and the low. So let the beautiful city of Glasgow flourish, and may the inhabitants always find food their bodies to nourish. The statue of the Prince of Orange is very grand, looking terror to the foe with a truncheon in his hand, and well mounted on a noble steed which stands in the Tron Gate, and holding up its foreleg. I am sure it looks first rate. And as for the statue of Sir Walter Scott that stands in George Square, it is a handsome statue. Few can with it compare, and most elegant to be seen. And close beside it stands the statue of Her Majesty the Queen. Then as for Kelvin Grove, it is most lovely to be seen, with its beautiful flowers and trees so green, and a magnificent water fountain spouting up very high, where the people can quench their thirst when they feel dry. Beautiful city of Glasgow, I now conclude my muse, and to write in praise of thee my pen does not refuse, and without fear of contradiction I will venture to say you are the second grandest city in Scotland at the present day. From Glasgow, with its beautiful climate and its beautiful glens and glades so green, and the lovely water which comes from bonny Loch Katrine in the country of Robert and Mrs. Roy McGregor. I had to leave Glasgow after some 4 years because of ill health, and we moved then to Dundee. In the city of Dundee, I learned from my father the handloom weaving. Dundee is very close to my heart, because by the city of Dundee flows that wonderful river, the Silvery Tay. Now, some of you may have heard that there was a great engineering feat over that Silvery River, the Tay. I wrote a poem to praise this wonderful creation, the Tay Bridge, which, alas, has recently met with doom and fate and has fallen into the waters of the Silvery Tay. However, it has been rebuilt, and I want to read you now 3 poems which I wrote, which I call the railway bridges of the Silvery Tay. Beautiful railway bridge of the Silvery Tay, with your numerous arches and pillars in so grand array, and your central girders which seem to the eye to be almost towering to the sky, the greatest wonder of the day, and a great beautification to the River Tay, most beautiful to be seen near by Dundee and the Magdalen Green. Beautiful railway bridge of the Silvery Tay that has caused the Emperor of Brazil to leave his home far away, incognito in his dress, and view thee ere he passed along en route to Inverness. Beautiful railway bridge of the Silvery Tay, the longest of the present day that has ever crossed o'er a tidal river stream, most gigantic to be seen near by Dundee and the Magdalen Green. Beautiful railway bridge of the Silvery Tay, and prosperity to Provost Cox, who was given £30,000 and upwards away in helping to erect the bridge of the Tay, most handsome to be seen near by Dundee and the Magdalen Green. Beautiful railway bridge of the Silvery Tay, and prosperity to Messrs. Bouch and Growth, the famous engineers of the present day who have succeeded in erecting the railway bridge of the Silvery Tay, which stands unequalled to be seen near by Dundee and the Magdalen Green. Beautiful railway bridge of the Silvery Tay. Alas, I am very sorry for to say that 90 lives have been taken away on the last Sabbath day of 1879, which will be remembered for a very long time. It was about 7 o'clock at night, and the wind it blew with all its might, and the rain came pouring down, and the dark clouds seemed to frown, and the demon of the air seemed to say, "I'll blow down the bridge of Tay." When the train left Edinburgh, the passengers' hearts were light and felt no sorrow, but Boreas blew a terrific gale, which made their hearts for to quail, and many of the passengers with fear did say, "I hope God will send us safe across the bridge of Tay." But when the train came near to Wormit Bay, Boreas he did loud and angry bray, and shook the central girders of the bridge of Tay on the last Sabbath day of 1879, which will be remembered for a very long time. So the train moved slowly along the bridge of Tay until it was about midway. Then the central girders with a crash gave way, and down went the train and passengers into the Tay. The storm fiend did loudly bray, because 90 lives had been taken away on the last Sabbath day of 1879, which will be remembered for a very long time. As soon as the catastrophe came to be known, the alarm from mouth to mouth was blown. The cry rang out all o'er the town, "Good heavens, the Tay bridge is blown down!" And a passenger chain from Edinburgh, which filled all the people's hearts with sorrow and made them for to turn pale, because none of the passengers were safe to tell the tale, how the disaster happened on the last Sabbath day of 1879, which will be remembered for a very long time. Oh, it must have been an awful sight to witness in the dusky moonlight, while the storm fiend did laugh and angry did bray, along the railway bridge of the Silvery Tay, oh, ill-fated bridge of the Silvery Tay. I must now conclude my lay by telling the world fearlessly, without the least dismay, that your central girders would not have given way, at least many sensible men do say, had they been supported in each side with buttresses. At least many sensible men confesses, for the stronger we our houses do build, the less chance we have of being killed. Beautiful new railway bridge of the Silvery Tay, with your strong brick piers and buttresses in so grand array, and your 13 central girders, which seem to my eye strong enough all winds, storms to defy. As I gaze upon thee, my heart feels gay, because thou art the greatest railway bridge of the present day, and can be seen for miles away, from north, south, east, or west of the Tay, on a beautiful and clear sunshiny day. Thy structure to my eye seems strong and grand, and the workmanship most skillfully planned, and I hope the designers, Messrs. Barlow and Arrow, will prosper for many a day for erecting thee across the beautiful Tay. The New Yorkers boast about their Brooklyn Bridge, but in comparison to thee it seems like a midge, because thou spannest the Silvery Tay a mile and more longer, I venture to say. Besides, the railway carriages are pulled across by a rope, therefore Brooklyn Bridge cannot with thee cope. And as you have been opened on the 20th day of June, I hope Her Majesty Queen Victoria will visit thee very soon, because thou art worthy of a visit from Duke, Lord, or Queen, near by Dundee and the bonny Magdalen Green. notice, ladies and gentlemen, I talked about the Brooklyn Bridge in New York. Your poet and tragedian, William McGonagall, a successor to William Shakespeare, has travelled far from his hometown of Dundee, his native town being, of course, that beautiful city, Scotland's bonny garden, the city of Edinburgh. It was in Dundee that I first wrote poetry. It was after this fashion. It was in the middle of June one year, and Dundee was in its summer holidays. And I was looking out of my back window, filled with gloom and sadness, that all these happy people were away enjoying the countryside, the green glades of Glasgow and the lands of Robert Burns and the beautiful mountainsides and countryside of Robert and Mistress Roy McGregor. And here was I in Dundee, and I gazed out of my window. The rain was tumbling down on the cobblestones, and suddenly it was as if the whole room was filled with light. I felt a glow throughout the whole of this mortal coil. And suddenly I heard a voice. And the voice was up there above the gas chandelier saying to me, "Write! Write!" And I said, "What shall I write?" And the voice said, "Poetry." So it was at that moment, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm sure the mantle of William Shakespeare fell upon this, your humble bard. I relit the gaslight, and taking a pen in my right hand and a scrap of paper, I wrote my first immortal verses, which were dedicated to one the Reverend George Gilfillan, a great old friend of mine, now lately departed from this unhappy world. These verses I deposited through the letterbox of the Dundee Courier anonymously, and they were printed with my initials underneath the next day and caused a great furore and gave rise to my international fame. The most memorable to me of all my travels was that well-known journey of mine to see Her sadly late Gracious Majesty Queen Victoria at Balmoral. Many people have asked me to tell the story of this journey. It was after this fashion. I set out from Dundee. It took me 3 days to get there. Walked all the way. First night I rested in Ailith in a lodging house for which I paid 4 pennies for my bed that night. I went out and bought victuals and made myself a very good supper, which I ate because I was very hungry. And soon I was fast asleep in the arms of Morpheus, and awoke bright and early with the lark in the morning, donned my clothes and went out and carried on with my journey. The next day I arrived in the Spittal of Glenshee, which is a most fearsome sight to see. And there was a terrible thunderstorm, and the thunder came down and the lightning. Oh, it was a most awesome sight. So I just repeated to myself, "Yea, though I walk through death's dark vale, yet will I fear none ill." And truly enough, the Lord brought me into the cottage of a shepherd. When I got there, the mistress of the house told me there was no accommodation. But on showing him my letter from Her Majesty the Queen with the black royal seal on it, he was so interested he took me in and gave me supper that night. And while I was at supper, I gave him a tuppenny copy of my poems, and he read them and then asked if I'd like to sleep in the barn outside. Well, I did that, and he took me out into the barn, this good man himself. And there I lay down in a bed which Her Most Gracious Majesty Queen Victoria herself would have been pleased to lay down her weary limbs on. Next morning I set forth and got to Castleton of Braemar by noon of the next day, and as I arrived at the royal castle of Balmoral, the hour of 3 was chiming from the clock in the tower. Across the little bridge over the Dee, which Her Majesty herself erected, I saw the little lodge gate, so I knocked at the door there, and the porter came and said, "What do you want?" I said, "To see Her Majesty the Queen." He said, "What do you want?" I was so astonished that he should ask the question twice, because nobody has ever called in question my elocutionary or dramatic powers. I said, "I want to see Her Majesty the Queen." And he said, "Have you a letter?" I produced a letter with the royal seal. Oh, this confused him. So he then said, what is the royal seal doing in this letter? And I said, I am the poet to Her Majesty, Her Most Gracious Majesty, Queen Victoria, Queen of this Great Britain and Empress of India. And he said, oh, no, you're not. The poet laureate is Alfred Lord Tennyson. Now, I think he must have been a relation of this Mr. A.L. Tennyson. Because he didn't go to the castle at all. I thought that he went to the castle, but he just went round the side of his lodge and he stood there. And a little while he came back and said, they don't want anything to do with you. Oh, my friends, jealousy is a terrible thing in the human spirit. He said, would you like to recite some of your poetry for me out here? I said, if the Queen herself asked me to recite outside, I would not do it. And he wanted to buy one of my poems, but I would have no truck with him. And I set off on my journey back to Dundee, which took me another 3 nights. However, I felt that I had seen Her Majesty the Queen, because as I rested in the shepherd's cottage at Spittal of Glenshee, I had a wonderful dream in which I saw Her Majesty passing in her carriage with her fine horses pulling her, and she waved to me. And I've always had a great devotion for her, which I have put into verse, and I have immortalized that most gracious lady in this poem. What an awful world we live in, ladies and gentlemen, that somebody should attempt to assassinate somebody as fine as Her Most Gracious Majesty Queen Victoria, and a Scotsman too. I have called this poem The Attempted Assassination of the Queen. God prosper long our noble Queen, and long may she reign. Maclean, he tried to shoot her, but it was all in vain. For God, he turned the ball aside. Maclean aimed at her head, and he felt very angry because he didn't shoot her dead. There is a divinity that hedgeth a king, and so it does seem, and my opinion is, it has hedged our most gracious Queen. Victoria is a good queen, which all her subjects know, and for that God has protected her from all her deadly foes. She is noble and generous, her subjects must confess. There hasn't been her equal since the days of good Queen Bess. Long may she be spared to roam among the bonny Highland floral, and spend many a happy day in the palace of Balmoral.